Hi again, everybody. Jeremy Plonk with First Bet and Express Bet, joined by Jeff Siegel. It's our weekly Tuesday foray into what we just seen on the racetrack called It's Official. We'll have 5 hot topics for you in horse racing. And Jeff, Triple Crown Trail was really busy last week. 4 preps around the country, one delayed from Saturday to Sunday. Some horses didn't make the dances. I mean, did it turn out as big as we thought it was going to be?
Well, it was busy, but not as busy as we thought it would be or hoped it would be. A lot of key Triple Crown type horses missed the race or missed their race. Now they're kind of like behind the 8 ball, some of these. So, and then we had a key prep run over a sea of slop. So we don't know if we can kind of trust that form. So I'm not sure we learned a whole lot. Just more questions than answers. But and it's time's running out. It's we still have a little bit of time, but not many more preps available for some of these horses that missed what they needed to show last week. So it's still kind of a wide open scramble right now.
No matter how talented you are as a racehorse, the strictest mistress on the Triple Crown Trail is the calendar. She does not forgive. Your Saturday, the first Saturday in May of your 3-year-old life, you are that one day. I mean, you don't get any margin for error to be a Kentucky Derby horse. So these horses who missed some time this weekend, what will that mean as we move forward towards that first Saturday in May? Let's look at our first of 5 topics on the board. We're talking scratches, cat scratch fever with all Ted Nugent apologies on that one. Cat scratch fever talks about the horses who didn't show up over the past weekend, and we're talking in the 3-year-old ranks with the Colts and the fillies, because the Star 2-year-old filly champion last year, just FYI, she came down sick on the morning of the Devona Dale and missed that race on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. But she had company when the track announcer says, "Your attention, please. You know something bad's happening. Either your horse is getting disqualified or scratched." And in this case, when the scratches were announced for the Fountain of Youth, Jeff, we knew a horse like Victory Avenue and Speakeasy were coming out of that race earlier in the day. Locked came out of the race as well. The Fountain of Youth just kind of decimated itself down to an uncompetitive field for Dornoch. And then Nisos was scratched out of Sunday's big race, the San Felipe, rescheduled from Saturday to Sunday. This alone would have been a hell of a 3-year-old race. It would have been the best race of the year had these 5 been in the starting gate somewhere. None of them made the races this past weekend. What gives?
I don't know. Very, very disappointing. Several different reasons for scratching, as you mentioned. Just FYI, the filly was scratched after I think the pick 6 was even into their sequence or rolling exotic plays. Speakeasy, he was the one that dumped its rider, didn't he? Didn't he dump?
Yeah, in the post parade, ran off.
So he at least had every intention of running and couldn't make it from the post parade to the starting gate. Locked wasn't right in the morning. They took him out. Same for Victory Avenue. Nisos was a scratch that was unexpected. So when you look at what happened, and for various reasons, maybe it was just one of those voodoo weekends where everything kind of conspired against it, or maybe there were exterior reasons that we have to deal with. But all in all, very disappointing. It left us flat. It really did. It's looking. We're looking forward to some key races, and now we're left empty. And maybe eventually it'll all work itself out. But this is not what you need to see if you have one of those horses looking for the big races, whether it's the Derby or the Kentucky Oaks.
Right.
Throw a monkey wrench into the whole plan. That everybody's set back a little bit, and it's very disappointing.
Yeah, a target date like that is fixed. It doesn't move. So how you get there, you always say no Derby winner ever wins the Derby without a feather turned over in their path, right? I mean, the one who gets that perfect spring campaign, winter into spring, that tends to, develop and blossom the right way. And for a horse to have a setback this time of year, it's a bad deal. And just FYI, hasn't raced yet this year. Neither has Locked. And we're already into the first weekend of March, heading towards the second weekend of March here coming up this coming week. So you got to get on the horse literally at this point and get to the races if you're going to make something like the Oaks and the Derby. We didn't even mention the Gotham Stakes, where 2 horses shipped out of California, one for Doug O'Neill named Facenda, the other one for John Sadler named Slider. Slider came up with an ankle injury, a foot injury, something like that. Yeah, in the morning. So he didn't end up starting in the Gotham Stakes. Doug O'Neill said, let's scratch out of this one with the horse who broke his maiden at Turf Paradise. He's going today in the City of Brotherly Love Stakes at Park. So he had another option. So there's reasons why these horses scratch sometimes on this 3-year-old trail. They're looking for different spots, maybe an easier spot, a spot where they fit a little bit better. Some of them are just coming down with illnesses and injury, though, which you certainly can't plan for, but they certainly throw the monkey wrench completely into all of your plans. Others, look, we've got HISA, we've got new medication rules, we've got testing, we've got things going on that aren't part of or haven't been part of the trail for decades. So we're in a little bit of a different time right now, Jeff, right? I mean, we're looking at a period in racing where scratches are higher than they've ever been, whether we're talking just this particular weekend with these 3-year-old horses. But a lot of times we're seeing a lot of horses coming off of cards around the country in the name of safety.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that there was several scratches, not just in the 3-year-old race we mentioned with Niceless, but other races here. We have big weekend card, and we had some late scratches. I know for a fact that there was at least one horse that was scratched out of one of the stakes races. I'm not going to say which because I don't want to betray a source, but one of them was scratched. The track vet told the trainer, "You are going to scratch this horse because if you don't scratch him, I will scratch him, and if I scratch him, he has to go on the vet's list." So these are pieces of information that the average general public doesn't have access to. But I can tell you that it is very frustrating for the racing office and for the racetrack to have these horses scratched, whereas in years past or seasons past they would have been allowed to run. But now everybody's here, is taking the cautious route here and taking out horses that in previous years would have been allowed to run, and maybe that's a good thing for sure. But on the other hand, we're losing horses that are borderline. So this type of situation where you have a series of scratches, not only in California, where they really do bend over backwards, I can tell you that, to other places, it's changing the game a little bit, and it's really, really frustrating to the people who own these horses and train them and need to have these prep races and are told you can't run.
That's our reaction to the situation. Let's go back to the list of horses we're talking about and figure out really the impact on those individuals moving forward. Let's go to Just FYI. She hasn't started yet. Last year's champion 2-year-old hasn't started yet at 3. She could get a race in something like the Fairgrounds Oaks or the Ashland off a layoff, a very, very tough comeback race, and then would only have one start before the Kentucky Oaks, Jeff. This has to almost derail her Kentucky Oaks plans.
You would have to think so. I think it's probably less important for her, though. She's already a champion. She's already got her Eclipse Award. If she misses the Kentucky Oaks, there's still a lot of good races for her. But there is only one Derby, the Kentucky Derby. And if you miss that, there's really nothing to replace it with. I mean, you can still be a champion in the division. We saw that the last 2 years. So for a horse like Speakeasy or any of these horses, if they miss the Derby, they're missing out. Whereas Just FYI, okay, we'll live with it, and then we'll win something else down the road that might be just as prestigious.
Speakeasy, Victory Avenue, Lock, these horses all missed the Fountain of Youth. They could come back in the Florida Derby, but again, that gives you just one race between then and the Kentucky Derby. For Speakeasy, that would just be a second career start. For Victory Avenue, it would just be his second career start. And for Lochte, he'd only have one prep on the 3-year-old campaign. It's almost as if time has run out for that trio to make the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it would be a press at this point.
Well, they might make it, but that doesn't mean they'll be at their best either.
Right.
It's really hard to have to do that off one race. I mean, it's not impossible. It's not unprecedented, but still, you don't want to have to live with that. And as far as Niceless is concerned, the good news for him, though, is that he's had a pretty good, solid foundation. I don't know whether he needs much more than the Santa Anita Derby to get ready for the Preakness. So
correct.
It probably wouldn't impact him as much. And that, we'll see how, now he has not worked since the previous week prior to the San Felipe. I'm kind of interested to see when Bob brings him back to the track. He trained so well the previous week prior to the San Felipe. I was kind of thinking that maybe he was just kind of ticking it over for the Santa Anita Derby, but then he was entered and then he didn't run, and we haven't seen him train now since this work. which was back on February 25th. He looked great. I mean, I'll give him that.
Right.
So I hope everything's okay with him. I guess we'll find out. If he doesn't work in the next few days, then we'll be scratching our head a little bit. But if he comes back and works this weekend, then I'm pretty sure it's not going to bother him missing this race.
Yeah, of all those stars on that list, Nysos might have the most room for error because he's got 2 more weeks to the Preakness. He's already got the 2-turn race under his belt. He's in his form cycle right now. He's not on the comeback like horses like Lockton, just FYI. He's into his form cycle. He's already won a 2-turn stake, so he's unlike the 2 horses coming out of that maiden race at Gulfstream. He's probably got the best advantage of that group of still reaching his spring goal, which is the Preakness Stakes at this point. So that's a look at the cat scratch fever that overwhelmed horse racing last weekend. Let's go to our second topic this week on It's Official. Door knock. He was on the track and he knocked on the door. Are we buying or selling this door-to-door salesman after winning the Fountain of Youth? Let's go back to Pete Aiello's call from South Florida.
Round the forward turn they go. Le Dame Bro tries to quicken up on the inside of Dornoch. These two now 2.5 better than Frankie's Empire. Real Macho puts the cue in the rack as they run to the top of the stretch. It's a confident Luis Saez on big favorite Dornoch. He's inside a 1/4 mile from home and in front. Le Dame Bro fighting as hard as he can, trying to stick with them. 3 back to Frankie's Empire, and they're at the top of the stretch. It's Dornoch asked to finish the job. At the inside, Le Dame Bro running his heart out, but he's back to second as Dornoch is too much horse. Dornoch clear with a 16th to go. The Fountain of Youth Stakes goes to Dornoch. Dornoch passes the seasonal debut test and wins. Close for second, Le Dame Bro or Frankie's Empire. Real Macho is fourth in 143 and 3.
So if you're a fan of Dornoch, you're happy that he comes back. He follows up on the Remsen win. Certainly a major key race, the Remsen. This race here is not going to just make your eyeballs bug out, though, Jeff. I know you like to say what the wow and the goosebumps meter for you. Where are your goosebumps?
Very, very. They're not even on. There were no goosebumps. You know, usually you can 7 or 8 or 9 on the 10 on a scale of 10 with the goosebumps. But it's great that he won. I've had horses that have won races, good races, and then you go to the winner's circle and you realize, yeah, he won, but when's the next one coming?
Yeah.
I don't, based on this race. I mean, he didn't earn much of a figure. The 88 Beyer number is well below what I would expect to see this time of the year from a colt that is expecting to be a major player in the Triple Crown. You'd want to be close to 100. So he was not particularly fast. He didn't beat anybody. He didn't do breezing in any way. He was ridden out to secure the win. He had trained well enough to be fit enough. He had already been a mile and an eighth, so he shouldn't have lost that much conditioning.
Right.
I expected more. But more than that, Jeremy, more than the pure raw speed figure, visual, how fast he ran, who he beat. He's not a real good athlete. He's a good horse. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
As a mover, he's sloppy on his leads. He's kind of awkward. He's kind of almost like a camel when he runs, and he strikes me as a horse, and he's usually gotten good trips. So he's never really had to overcome a lot of problems. He's never had to steady. He's always been in the clear, and to his credit, he's been able to achieve those kind of trips.
Right.
But in a big field in Kentucky at Churchill Downs, if he gets behind horses, if he gets bounced around, gets a little farther back than he wants to be, does he strike you as a slam dunk to be able to overcome a less than ideal trip? He doesn't.
Right.
That's right.
He doesn't have that joystick maneuverability that you see with the really good horses. So he can't extract himself from trouble. He's got to avoid the trouble, and it's hard to avoid with 19 rivals, as you mentioned, when you talk about a Kentucky Derby horse. Let's compare him a little bit to himself, because the competition in this race wasn't strong with all of the scratches. Le Dame Bro, the horse who was the runner-up in here that he beat by 1.5 lengths, he beat by 30 in the Remsen. The same horse that he beat by 30 lengths in the Remsen, he beat by 1.5 lengths here. Either Le Dame Bro got a hell of a lot better, or he didn't improve too much and came back to the pack in this particular spot. That's a negative for sure when it comes to Dornoch. I will say this. He was really gawky and green, and like you said, still sloppy with the lead change. No doubt about that. But he didn't do the ducking in and out that he did in some of his previous races. I like that part of it. I watched the head-on replay from the Gulfstream feed at ExpressBet. He did not move more than about a length or two or a harrow path or two left or right the entire stretch run. He ran straight as a string, so that's a good thing. The other thing that I did like is Luis Saez only showed him the whip. He did not go to the stick. Now, the question could be he was so confident he didn't need to go to the stick, or two, he was afraid to go to the stick because this horse has been herky-jerky all over the track in some of his races. So that may have been the reason why he just kind of showed it to him and flagged, but didn't go to the whip on him at all. So, look, he's going to have to be a lot better to factor as a major player in the Kentucky Derby. But to say he's not a quality member of this crop, you win the Remsen, you win the Fountain of Youth, and you look at what else is out there around the country. You subtract the Baffert, who won't be in the Kentucky Derby. Dornock's still a top 10 contender for the Kentucky Derby. Problem is, like, seventh choice on the tote board on Derby day is going to be 15, 20 to 1, right? I mean, so saying you're the seventh choice for the Kentucky Derby, yeah, technically that means you're still one of the ones, but you are an outsider. And right now he feels a little outsiderish to me. He's going to have to run better in the next one. But this effort here on Saturday was just kind of
Yeah, it's good that he gets another chance to
Right.
make a much more favorable impression than he did last weekend. And then we'll see how much advancement he has in him, because he's going to need it. But on the other hand, he's got that Remsen, and that's something that you can always look back at and say, well, this is him on his best day.
Right.
So we still have to consider him a major contender. And now he's got to come back to that race in the Florida Derby if, in fact, that's where he's going to run his next race.
Yeah, in the Remsen, he beat Sierra Leone, Chad Brown's Risen Star winner, who everybody has ranked top 2, 3, 4 for the Kentucky Derby. So he's already got a head-to-head win against Sierra Leone. We know how good that Remsen was because the Jerome winner came out of that race. Domestic Product, who was second in the Holy Bull, is coming back this week in the Tampa Bay Derby. He has come back and run well out of that race. The Smarty Jones winner came out of or the Jerome winner came out of that race. So the Remsen has definitely paid its toll this year towards the 3-year-old trail with the 2 or 3 major prep winners, a second place finisher along the way. And again, LaDon Bro was beaten 30 lengths in that Remsen. He came back and ran second against not too much else left in the Fountain of Youth edition. Okay, so we're going to stay on the Triple Crown talk, and we're going to go to our Triple Crown tracker next. It's topic 3 here this week on It's Official. The tracker is going to take you to Santa Anita, Aqueduct, back to Gulfstream for an undercard race, and to Turfway Park for the prep for the Jeff Ruby. Let's start off at Santa Anita. We thought it was going to be Nysos and everybody else. Turned out it was just everybody else after the scratch of Nysos. And everybody else meant 4, 2 still trained by Bob Baffert, and they were inseparable throughout the San Felipe. Here's Frank Birmati.
They turn for home. Imagination and Wind Me Up. Imagination just in front. Wind Me Up battling bravely at the rail. It's Imagination with a narrow lead with a furlong left to go. Wind Me Up, though, is very tough. And here comes Wind Me Up on the inside under Juan Hernandez. Wind Me Up, Imagination in a DK horse San Felipe thriller. Photo finish, Imagination and Wind Me Up. They raced virtually as a team throughout, and they finished noses apart. McVeigh was third.
There was not much in behind them. McVeigh, a maiden, the horse who Scatify ran up on the heels of everybody on the clubhouse turn, was never a factor in the race for John Sadler. So it was like a team workout. This looked like a Baffert AM drill. 2 horses going side by side. Let's finish up, kind of even up on the wire and gallop out together. Is this just a workout, Jeff, or these 2 improving horses we want to look at towards the Preakness and Belmont Stakes?
I think they're both decent. Imagination ran Maymoon to a neck last time out. That was good. Came back relatively quickly and won this race. Had a good pressing trip. I think he's a decent horse. Again, not a lot of wow factor there.
Right.
Because Wind Me Up, he'd run 5 previous times. He'd kind of figure out what he was and what he is. He got beat 28 lengths in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, 3 races back, off the board at Los Alamitos behind Winstock. We came out of that race and got dusted in Oakland Park. And then a distant and non-competitive second to Nysos last time out. That was Wind Me Up, who almost won the race. So, I mean, they're the kind of horses that if they were mine, I would try to earn a lot of money with them and try to win the secondary races without dreaming about the big prize. But it does goes to show you what is left in California, and this is disappointing. These are two Baffert horses. You know they're not running for the Derby, obviously. And there's nobody else even training on the grounds here that you would even moderately consider to be a classic runner other than the Bafferts who can't run in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Very, very disappointing. But this is a situation that has been building over several years where a lot of trainers or owners just wave the white flag when it comes to 3-year-olds. I'm not going to run in California. I can't beat any one of the 5 Bafferts that I know he has or will have. And it's just completely gutted the 3-year-old division on the West Coast. And this was a perfect example of it. Even Baffert's second stringers beat the other ones. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's not getting any better anytime soon. The money out here isn't as good as it used to be, and the competition is just non-existent. So that's, to me, is the most important thing, because 3-year-old racing in California used to be fantastic, and now without other than the Bafferts, it's almost non-existent.
Doug O'Neill, for a decade, 2 decades, had horses on the Triple Crown Trail almost annually. He just doesn't have anything this go around. Phil D'Amato is a turf trainer, rarely has a good 3-year-old. He has Stronghold this year that he sent to Sunland to win the Sunland Park Derby. Maybe you could see him back in the Santa Anita Derby as a little bit of bolstered troops, if you will. Slider missed the Gotham Stakes for John Sadler. Maybe they can get healthy and he could run in Southern California, but they're just not anybody there. You know, the Peter Millers, who have had some Derby horses over the years, nothing in Southern California at this time. Jeff Mullins, these guys just don't even have 3-year-old dirt kind of horses anymore, you know. And at one point in time, they were winning Santa Anita Derbies, and those guys just aren't in the division anymore. It has been conceded to Baffert.
They don't even try anymore.
Right.
I don't blame them for not trying, but I can tell you this, is if I had a good Derby type 3-year-old, I wouldn't beat my head against the ground here. I wouldn't do it. I mean, it's too much money anywhere, everywhere else with less competition. I mean, you know, so it's just a situation that is very disappointing. I wish I had an answer or a suggestion as to how to change it, but I don't. It's just, it is what it is. And because of that, it kind of, it hurts the whole 3-year-old competition level between East versus West and what guys can do. And so I don't know, maybe it'll change, but right now this is what passes for our 3-year-olds other than the Bafferts.
You might think we're exaggerating. You might think we're being melodramatic about this. So I'll throw the number at you. We brought this up on our handicapping show, I believe, on Friday last week, but our Tuesday listeners, we didn't say this. In the last 21 3-year-old Triple Crown prep races at Santa Anita, where Bob Baffert had a horse in his name eligible to run, he has 17 wins in those 21 races now after running 1-2 again. In the 4 races he lost, he ran second in all 4. And of those 4 horses who lost, 2 went on to win the Kentucky Derby. So we talk about dominance. We're not just exaggerating here. We're going back to Roadster in the 2019 Santa Anita Derby now for 21 races to go back to. The 2019 Santa Anita Derby, and it has been all Baffert since. Again, 17 out of 21 with 4 seconds, and of his 4 seconds, they included Medina Spirit and Authentic, who lost races. It's just unbelievable that the way he has dominated the 3-year-old scene in Southern California. Let's move on our Triple Crown tracker from the San Felipe. We go next to the Gotham Stakes in New York. The Gotham Stakes was a race where Brad Cox had a couple hot shots in there, but it was a Christophe Clement layoff horse from Saratoga who came back running named Deterministic.
On the outside, these two head and head as they reach the top of the stretch. 46-3 for the half-mile time. 1:10-4 for 3/4. El Grandeo has got the lead in the Gotham. It's El Grandeo out in the center of the racetrack. Maximus Meridius is battling on, chasing his Deterministic in between horses. El Grandeo, but here comes Deterministic in full gear down towards the inside and takes the lead. It's Deterministic who's in front, is up by a length and a half. Just a touch into second. Deterministic wins the Gotham. Deterministic over just a touch. Then came El Grandeo in 1:36.37 seconds.
We talk about second-time starters, some of those horses in Florida who didn't even get to their second start without scratching this weekend. It had been a long time since we saw Deterministic back last summer at Saratoga. He comes back running here, Jeff. Sloppy track, hard to make a lot out of the conditions, and the quality of the race wasn't exceptional, but just a touch the runner-up. Looked like a nice horse off his debut win at Fairgrounds. But again, we're judging horses here with one race on their resume going into this race the first weekend in March.
Of all the horses that ran last week in the 3-year-old division, to me, this was the best performance. Now, you've got to put an asterisk behind it because it's a wet track. And my Liam's mapping out of America by Spicetown. If he didn't love the off track, I give up. I mean, the question is how much did that move him up, if any? He did graduate first time out over a difficult 7 furlong distance. That's tough for a first-time starter at Saratoga. He did it on fast ground last August and hadn't run back. So now he comes back off that layoff, runs a tough one-turn mile over a testing track, took a lot of mud in the face, and still came away and won going away. Good mover, solid number. I mean, there's a Liam's Map Colt who brought $625,000 as a yearling. A good bottom line, but not one that jumps off the page. He must be an incredibly good-looking colt. He's a very good mover. And Christophe Clement, an exceptional trainer, now has to figure out, okay, I have to go on with him now. I mean, I got to go off and win a big prep somewhere, and then maybe lack of experience, whatever, but it's got to be considered. I think he's a really, really good colt. I wish he was able to have done this back in January, because now he's really up against the 8 ball, and in terms of behind the 8 ball, I should say, because now he doesn't have any option other than to go to a grade 1 against more experienced horses. But he's good. He is good. He's for real. And we'll just have to see the lack of experience, the lack of foundation, how much of an obstacle that will be. But man, if I owned him, I'd be excited and I'd be through the roof.
He's got some options, not mentioning the Kentucky Derby, because Christophe Clement does not have Derby fever, right? I mean, you think about his career, he's not one to push horses to Louisville, nor does he ever have hardly any that are in that discussion going to Louisville. But think this year with the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga at 1.25 miles, you don't have to get to the 1.5 miles. You could go to the Peter Pan with this horse and get a chance with the Peter Pan being run at Aqueduct and then to Saratoga to go on for the Belmont Stakes. And that might be a more natural progression for this horse in terms of quality of competition, in terms of distance. I wouldn't mind seeing this horse go Peter Pan, Belmont Stakes, Deterministic, and not be a Kentucky Derby horse. But he's one to consider in the Triple Crown chase right now because he does look like he has a lot of upside to him. If he can get another race or two under his belt, that could be where he peaks. But he's going to need some more seasoning. He's going to need to step up in class and distance until he proves that. How far will he go? We don't know. The pedigree doesn't say that he has to stay short, but it doesn't scream that he's going to be a classic distance horse. But if there's a trainer who can get stamina out of a horse in America, Christophe Clement is in that top 5 discussion. So if you think you can need to squeeze another 1/4 mile out of this horse, he's in the right hands of a true stamina trainer in Clement. So let's see what he's got. Deterministic is pretty exciting.
What you just said about a plan for him, Peter Pan, Belmont, makes so much sense. But you try to tell that to an owner who wants to it's very, very hard. But the other thing that maybe Christophe Clement would think would be, if I want to win a Kentucky Derby, maybe this is the year I should try because there's going to be no balance in there either. Yeah, I don't know how much. I mean, he's probably saying to himself, I just saw Dornock won. I think I can beat him, And my colt, I don't know about Sierra Leone, but I mean, where are the other major players? So it's going to be a hard choice to make if you go the proper route, the one that I agree with you. The more conservative route, especially when you can still be a champion 3-year-old without winning the Kentucky Derby. We saw that the last 2 years.
Right.
Whatever the case is, I am very high on him, and I'm glad I'm not the guy that has to make that choice because, I'm more conservative than normal when it comes to mapping out racing plans for horses, and I would be tempted to take that route that you just suggested, but it would be almost impossible to bypass the Derby if you thought you had a shot.
Big win on an off track, off a layoff like that. Really important to see how quickly Deterministic returns to the workout tab. You want to see it in about 10 days to get him back working. That'll show that he bounced out of the race, and it's not one of those situations where, the horse is going the wrong direction and kind of had a negative reaction to that first start back. If he's back on the workout tab 7, 8, 10 days from now, that's a very good sign. And he'll be a formidable 3-year-old to look forward to. Right. Now, Conquest Warrior down in Florida has yet to try the stakes ranks, but he's run through the conditions now with a maiden special weight slight trouble win at Gulfstream and an allowance win last Friday, going the 1 1/8 distance. He's on the same timing as the Fountain of Youth horses towards the Florida Derby. We'll see what Shug McGahee maybe has in the holster with this one after his win last Friday.
It's Merritt through 3/4 and 112-1. He has the lead. Conquest Warrior with no excuse from there, and the two favorites hook up 1/4 mile from home. Merritt working harder to hold the lead, and Conquest Warrior is already past him. Back to third, that's Nomos together with Ragel. There's 1/8 mile to go. Conquest Warrior is kick clear with authority. Conquest Warrior under jockey Jose Ortiz will win and win impressively on his road to the Florida Derby. Here's Conquest Warrior, geared down and 3.5 in front. Merritt will cling to the place. Ragel is third. Nomos is fourth in 150-2.
Now, he was supposed to beat that field pretty handily. Merritt, the horse who was the runner-up, was entered in the Fountain of Youth, stayed in this race. So he had one quality challenger out of the allowance ranks to take on in that spot. Dispatched him and won pretty handily there. If Dornoch would have won looking that facile in victory, you'd feel a lot better about Dornoch. But the fact that this was an allowance race and not the stakes, what do we make now of Conquest Warrior, Jeff? He's a horse, another one who I've had in my top 20, and we'll see the top 20 in just a little bit on the show. But I don't know if I could just kind of thumbs up from here and just kind of rocket him up the charts off of that effort. It was good, but not great.
Well, I tell you, I had the same reaction to you, what you just described after the race was over. I was hoping to see a blowout win. He won by 5. Right. The time was okay. The number was okay. But the more I watched that race, the more I got the impression that Shug didn't really want a hard race in him. This was an allowance race. It didn't matter whether you won by 20 or 5, whatever it was. He wasn't going to get any points anyway. He was using this as an afternoon workout. Mm-hmm. And although he didn't blow anybody away, I thought he spent about 60% of his energy in winning.
Yeah,
I really did.
Yeah,
I mean, that is not in any way, shape, or form the best that Conquest Warrior can do. We'll see that pretty close to what he can do next time, because he's got to have to win or run second to get the points in. And I think with this race, this tightener, logical bridge from his maiden win, which was around one term, I think the next time you see Conquest Warrior run, you're going to see a significant amount of improvement. He's got to go out and do it. Just because I say he's going to improve doesn't mean he will. But I do think he has that in him. So to me, Conquest Warrior is right where he needs to be, and I think Shug's very pleased with that race. Didn't take anything out of him. Now they can crank him up next time for a major effort, and then we'll find out how serious a candidate he will be.
Who was better last weekend, he or Dornoch? Just not their total resumes, but just last weekend.
I like the way Conquest Warrior won his race a lot better than the way I like Dornoch. Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, one was a grade 2, the other one was an allowance race, but I didn't think the grade 2, as it turned out, had anything in it. Right. It could have been an allowance race just as easily. In fact, I'm not so sure it was that much tougher, if it was tougher, other than the winner, than the allowance race. So, and Conquest Warrior, I mean, his ears were up in the final for long. He's playing around and he's just coasting in. I mean, he wasn't even asked hard to go get the leader either. He just kind of went to him. He wasn't like choking on. So, I mean, to me, and numbers wise, I think Conquest Warrior actually earned a better number anyway. So, from that standpoint, if you ask me one or the other, I think Conquest Warrior to me was a little bit better.
All right, that's Jeff's answer on that one. Let's go to the John Battaglia Memorial at Turfway Park, the prep for the Jeff Ruby, where the horse of the meet had the lead at the top of the stretch, but he got run down by a Brad Cox trainee who's in the right way now, named Encino.
He gets within 2.5 legs. Here's Epic Ride to tackle Bolt at Midnight. Blue-Eyed George is all in. Encino makes a move for third from the outside. Epic Ride has come away with the lead. Here comes Encino to the outside. inside. Blue-Eyed George is trying to fight on. Bolted Midnight from the inside. A final furlong to run. And the John Battaglia Memorial Epic Ride. Encino is testing him. Blue-Eyed George from the rail. Here comes Encino. Encino wins the John Battaglia Memorial.
So it wasn't a great day for Brad Cox in New York as his well-bet horses were defeated, but he upset the favorite here in the John Battaglia Memorial with Encino, who overcame a tough post position. And this is a horse who had everything his way in his maiden race last time, and I thought he wasn't that impressive. Now when you threw a little obstacle at him with the wide draw and the wide trip, he was far more impressive. This is a horse who made, even though he's won back-to-back races, he made a major move forward this time versus his last.
He was getting getting 6 pounds from Epic Ride.
Right.
But I thought Epic Ride's a pretty decent, kind of useful colt myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
he went by him in the final stages of the race, lightly raced colt by Nyquist and out of a mare by Bernardini, which tells me he's supposed to get better with age, certainly better with distance. And the way he rallied wide, last 16th and 6th flat. Again, you don't know how much the all-weather surface contributes. Nyquist, I don't think, has any kind of reputation of being a synthetic specialist over dirt.
Right.
So I don't think that should bother him. He's coming. He's coming. Mm-hmm. You know, again, if you had a horse like this is what you want to see, progression. Right. And he's progressing. And as you pointed out, a rather significant amount of improvement between his last win and this one. And I'm very curious to see what he'll do next time. I think you have to consider him, other than the fact that he's an all-weather horse so far, a legitimate type of prospect here for a guy who obviously knows how to train a good colt.
It's Godolphin, it's Brad Cox, it's Nyquist, it's Bernardini in the pedigree. You could say it's Turfway and it's the other side of the tracks. Not so much anymore. The Turfway horses have been strong in recent years. Let us not forget, just 2 years ago, the Derby winner coming through Turfway. Last year, 2 fills, the Derby runner-up coming through Turfway. This is a blue-blooded horse from blue-blooded program from a track that's had a lot of success in the Derby over the past 2 years. So do not sleep on Encino. I assume he will go to the Jeff Ruby next. It makes logical sense to move on to the mile and an eighth prep there at Turfway. And if he runs well on that one, there's only 3 weeks between the Jeff Ruby and the Battaglia. That's the weird thing. In this day and age where everybody's keeping their preps 4 and 5 weeks apart, I'm surprised that they have those two just 3 weeks apart in the calendar. So if he doesn't come back to the Jeff Ruby, it might be as much about the timing as anything. And then maybe he waits another week and comes back and tries the bluegrass. I could see Encino trying the bluegrass on the dirt and see what they have there.
When you have a colt like this, you're not worried about purse money or anything like that. You're worried about finding out as much as you can about your colt so that you don't make the mistake of running him in the Derby when you don't know if he can handle a dirt or track or not. Again, the long term, I think I would give him the extra week, run him on dirt, see where he's at. If he's not up to that, then don't run him in the Derby and back off a little bit. What's wrong with that? This colt certainly should be better as he gets older. I'm not sure winning the Jeff Ruby is going to do a whole lot for him. He's still not going to know. And coming back in 3 weeks might do more harm than good. So I don't know. Right. It'll be an interesting decision that Brad has to make, and he'll consider all the options.
Yeah, I mean, you go to the bluegrass and maybe you run 3rd or 4th and he runs okay on the dirt, but not good enough to get in the Derby. You've got the Preakness lined up with a horse like this as a new shooter then, as a potential player there, as a grandson of Bernardini, a Preakness winner. So let's go to our Countdown of the Crown top 20 rankings in just a moment. But first we want to hit the Preakness Future Wager, getting off the format here. Preakness Future Wager, pool number 1, closed on Saturday night at 8 p.m. So people didn't get to see the Sunday race to San Felipe by the time the wagering closed. About $135,000 in the pool for this first ever early Preakness Future Wager. Last year, we debuted the Preakness Future Wager the week before the Kentucky Derby and up through Kentucky Derby post time. So that pool drew about 300,000 in wagers. This one about 135,000. Nisos closed as the 5-2 favorite. Again, at the point that this was determined, Jeff, he had already scratched for Sunday's race, right? That scratch was announced on Saturday during the day that he would not be competing on Sunday. So Folks knew that he was going to be scratched from the Sunday race to San Felipe. Bet him to 5-2 favoritism. All other 3-year-olds checked in at 5-1. You get Imagination, the Wind Me Up. The horses who ran 1-2 in the San Felipe would fit under that all others designation, and some others. Encino, a horse we just talked about, wasn't an individual interest. Any of these numbers, these are about the top 10 or 12 individual interest for the wagering. Anything in here catch your eye?
Not among that group. I don't think there's a lot of jump off the page. Oh, I wish I had that type of price. I mean, you got some nice horses in there. Conquest Warrior at 30-1 and all looks better than that to me. May Moon at 20, I could maybe live with that.
Right.
So, those are the ones. I don't think there's any great bargain with Nisos at 5-2. Yeah, maybe he'll be 4-5 or 3-5 on Preakness Day, but that's a long way down the road. So I have Sierra Leone at 14-1, but that's probably only going to be good if he wins the Kentucky Derby. Otherwise, I doubt if he'll even run back. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't nothing that at least in that grouping really jumps off the page. But maybe you've got some 50 or 60 or 80-1 shots you want to try.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Preakness and say, like, which trainers support the Preakness? Of recent years, Chad Brown with the Klaravich horses, definitely Preakness-centric. So domestic product at 50-1 in the Preakness future, not a bad play there. Right. Steve Asmussen's had a horse in the Preakness, I think, 7 years in a row. He's going to have a horse for the Preakness. His best horse right now is Track Phantom, who just keeps running and running. He's 45-1. That's not a bad play. But there are a couple big bombs. We talked about Drip, a horse who's going to go into Tampa Bay Derby this weekend. I like Drip. He's 90-1 in the Preakness future wager. These late bloomers are the kind of horses and lightly raced horses who may fit better in the Preakness than they do in the Kentucky Derby, just because of timing, foundation, points accrued, all those kind of things. So those kind of horses like Drip, 90-1. Snead, who's coming back off an injury, if he can get one good prep in him, but not make the Kentucky Derby. Snead's 156-1. That's a great price. And here's one at 200-1. I can't believe this price, but 200-1 on Resilience, who I thought ran a very good fourth in the Risen Star, wasn't beaten far by Sierra Leone, who's like the second or third choice in the Derby right now. Maybe the favorite in the Derby. So 200-1 on Resilience, I thot was a pretty darn good price for the way to go. Future.
Oh, sure. You don't need 5-2. You can get that 5 times a day. What are you worried about 5-2? But 200-1 with a legitimate chance, they get in the race. Why not try something like that?
Yeah, you're like one start out now from the Preakness for some of these horses, maybe 2, and 200-1 is something that you can sink your teeth into. Here's how I'll rank them this week when Friday's Countdown to the Crown comes out, my 19th season of the 3-year-old scouting report. We're about midway through. I think this is week 10. Usually goes about 21, 22 weeks till we get through the Belmont Stakes. I made no changes to the top 13, 14, 15 in here, Jeff. I had Conquest Warrior 12. I didn't move him up. I didn't move him down. I liked the allowance win. I wasn't completely wowed to jack him up, but he could certainly make a move next time out. Dornoch last week was number 7. I didn't touch him. I just kind of left him where he was. He could have dropped a spot or two, maybe arguably in this spot, but there's nobody behind him who I just think is begging to come up. Locked was a horse I had ranked 16th last week. He's now missed 2 starts from a fever and from not training well, so I dropped him out of the top 20. And Honor Maria, a horse who ran 5th in the Risen Star, was in my top 20 last week. I dropped him out because he's been working head-to-head with Drip, and Drip has outworked him a couple times in a row for Whit Beckman, and Drip running this week in the Tampa Bay Derby is the better of those 2 3-year-olds right now, I think. So I'm going to move Drip into my top 20. So I dropped out Lock and Honor Marie. I brought in Drip, and I put Deterministic in the top 20 in at 19 right now. You could argue maybe he could go up a couple spots as well.
Yeah, the only horse there that might have a little higher would be Conquest Warrior, but that's more projection than resume, if you know what I mean. I mean, right. I think he's going to be good, and I think he's going to be better next time, but I don't know. I mean, even a horse like Tuscan Gold, I mean, these are horses that have potential, but they have to still go out and prove it. And so right now, very solid list. I really don't have any issue at all with the top 10, and certainly even the ones that you included in the second bottom half. They're about where they belong to.
Conquest Warrior wins the Florida Derby. He's one of the top 2 or 3 choices in Louisville, right? I mean, he's really that close but he's got to make another leap forward off of that allowance win from his maiden to the allowance. But this is what Orb did this time of year. Shug brought him along fairly similarly, but Orb did get two stakes races in between the Fountain of Youth and Florida Derby, I believe. So he's a little bit behind Orb, but he's kind of in that mold of a horse who can finish.
Jeremy, I can tell you this: if they run against each other in the Florida Derby, I would take Conquest Warrior over Dornoch. I'm planning to do that. Now we'll see what happens. I want to watch him train in the interim, but that's where I stand as of right now. So, but again, got to go out and prove it.
That's a look at our Triple Crown tracker. Let's move on to topic number 4 this week on It's Official, as there's new blood in an old division. New blood in terms of a horse who's now risen to the top of the stakes ranks in Southern California. His name is Newgate. It's some old blood, though, as the trainer Bob Baffert won another big one, and jockey Frankie Dettori got a big victory that he'll celebrate. Go back and watch with Frank Miramonte.
Newgate swinging into action on the far outside. Newgrange inside of him. There's an 1/8 of a mile to go. Subsonador by 2. Reincarnate chasing. Newgate on the outside is also closing stoutly. Here comes Newgate after Subsonador. Newgate has good momentum coming right to Subsonador, who has led throughout. Subsonador digging in. Newgate surging. Here's the line. Newgate gets up to win the big cap under Frankie Dettori over Subsonador.
Hey, Kirk, we're gonna turn and go right into Bob.
Right over here, gentlemen. I want the big cap. Bravo. I want the big cap.
The infectious enthusiasm of Frankie Dettori. He might be the best thing about Southern California racing right now, honestly. I mean, he is so enthusiastic. He's advanced in age. It's like Messi coming here to play soccer, and he might be beyond his absolute prime, but it's a big deal for MLS. Frankie Dettori riding here stateside this year and last year probably is not getting the credit it deserves around the industry and the novelty and the specialty that it is. But man, you can tell just winning that race was exciting to him.
I can just remember or think what went through his mind last year when he announced he was retiring. And then towards the end of the year, he's thinking to himself, maybe lying in bed or something or whatever, and saying, what am I thinking? Why am I can still ride. And he's done great work here. And I'm glad that he appreciates a win in a race like the Santa Anita Handicap. He was an apprentice, a bug boy. I don't even know how many years ago, 25, 30 years ago, whatever it was. Probably longer than that. So he appreciates what the big cap was on the national schedule. It's not the same race anymore.
Right.
When we won it back in '89, it was $1 million race. Now it's a $400,000 race. That's 30 years ago. So 35 years ago. So I'm glad that he still appreciates winning a race like this. And it may not have been the greatest field in the world, and I don't think Newgate's going to go out and win the Breeders' Cup Classic. But it was an exciting race. It was good for the fans who want to relive what it used to be. And it's really no fault of the race itself. It's no fault of the Santa Anita that the race has slipped in prestige. It's just life. It's just the way it is. It's money. It's purse money. How are you going to compete with $20 million? Sorry. Right. I mean, come on, Right. So, but it's still good to have it around. And they say, how do you regurgitate or resuscitate the big cap? I don't know if it's possible anymore, but we can still enjoy it. And I'm glad we got a really good, exciting race to showcase this year.
Southern California will be adding the California Crown in September for the older horse division, worth $1 million. And a new bonus thrown at that this week announced that there'd be a bonus if the Preakness winner can win the California Crown and then go on to win the Pegasus World Cup. I think $5 million, $10 million, something like that. There's a lot of bonus money on the line for the various divisions there. So they're trying with the stake schedule to make the fall more of the time for Santa Anita, because again, that competition in the spring with the Saudi Cup and the Pegasus World Cup and with the Dubai World Cup, you're kind of sandwiched in there. And we're at a point in time where in the old days, you would have run in a lot of those different races. All you needed were 3 weeks in between races, and you send your horse to another big dance. Now they want 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks in between big races. So it's hard to get a limited group of top-class horses to compete in all these big events. But the excitement of Frankie Dettori is the takeaway I will have for the 2024 Santa Anita Handicap. Our fifth and final topic, as always here on It's Official, is our Stars of Tomorrow as we look ahead. Yes, we have a lot of Todd Pleshers. Yes, we have a lot of Bob Baffords. How about we throw a Mark Hennig at you Sunday at Gulfstream Park? Bonus Move looks like a good one on the grass.
The top two kicking away, and Johnny V has a confident hold of Bonus Move. Bonus Move wheels off the turn, now kicking clear with authority. Back to second is Urge to Merge at the rail. That's Irish Heartbeat. Lamb Carl for a slice. Back for more is Roaring Indian, but it's all Bonus Move. Bonus Move making 6-5 look like easy money by 6 in the end. Second was Irish Heartbeat. Third.
Easy money, Pete Aiello, if you had that one. And why is it? It seems like every time we get one of these horses that runs a freakish performance, it's a Twirling Candy. They come out of nowhere with some really good ones every once in a while.
Yeah, and I know this is not the most prestigious division in the world, 3-year-old grass sprinters, but I wanted to, show some love for Bonus Move because I think this colt's got a chance to be a really nice colt, given the limited amount of type of races he's probably going to be able to run in. Although I do think he might run a mile or a little farther. He's by Twirling Candy, who certainly could get a distance horse, and out of him there by Warfront. Second down by Unbridled Song, had a couple of nice horses. Philly Luminance was second to Sandy Oaks out here. Stellar Sound was a nice filly out here in California. Third down was a mare that you probably remembered, Jeremy, a really good Danzig mare named Versailles Treaty, in Alabama. There's a chance that this colt, as fast as he is, and he ran 55 flat, last eighth and 11-1, first time ever on grass. He'd had 2 prior runs on dirt, ran well, not great, but ran well, and now he moves to grass and turns in this performance. There's a chance that if he's allowed to do what he wants to be, and that is a turf sprinter or maybe a turf miler. I mean, he's good. He's a very, very good mover, good athlete, good action. He's got a chance to dominate his division if he's allowed to do that. So I think there are a lot bigger and better things for Bonus Move. Just his third start, ran off the screen, ran fast, did everything right. Nice colt, nice prospect, Bonus Move. Keep him on the grass. I think he's going to win a lot of money.
And you mentioned Versailles Treaty, the Dam of Zarland, the horse I covered on the Kentucky Derby Trail in 2002. I did a daily blog every day leading up to the Kentucky Derby for Zarland on ESPN.com. And the owner, Cynthia Phipps, she told me, I read your column every day because Shug doesn't tell me anything. She learned more about her own horse by reading the blog every day than she did.
By the way, Versailles Treaty also produced a horse named George Vancouver, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf winner of a few years back. So there's a family there, and it looks to me like Bonus Move is a throwback to that type of horse, and we'll see how far he can move up the ladder.
Could be another big invasion, right? A horse who was in that same kind of division and dominant with that. So maybe we'll see that from Bonus Move. Let's review our 5 topics this week. The Cat Scratch Fever. We talked about the hows and whys. All the big horses dropped out of the big races this past weekend. Door knock, buy or sell. We're kind of selling, but we want a little bit of money back for the purchase on Door knock. Triple Crown Tracker. We took you all around the country with all the major preps, and Shug McGahee had the aforementioned Shug had a good-looking allowance winner at Gulfstream that we showed you as well. New blood in an old division. It was Frankie Dettori putting Newgate's head down on the wire to win the Santa Anita Handicap. And our star of tomorrow this week was Bonus Move for trainer Mark Hennig, good turf sprinter, 3-year-old. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's the way we play the game, and we'll put 5 more in the rack next week and see how they shake out as we review Tampa Bay Derby weekend, also the Beholder Mile Grade 1 coming up this weekend at the Great Race Place at Santa Anita. Let's keep it dry on the West Coast this year, Jeff, can you, this week?
No, it's going to rain again tomorrow, but I will say this.
It can rain on Wednesday.
Mother Nature has a heart. She's only raining now this week in California on an off racing day. So good. Fine. If you want to rain, do it on a Wednesday where it doesn't matter. I was really, though, impressed with the way the main track and the grass course dried out last Sunday. I thought this used to be a major issue here in California. Now, credit to Santa Anita management and the track superintendent for being able to get everything right with the main track. It was fast on Sunday. The grass course took a lot of water and it was in great shape. So tip my hat to them to have great racing on Sunday last week.
Wednesday will be post-position draw day for the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. Also, post positions for the Tampa Bay Derby will be drawn on Wednesday. By the time we reconvene, it'll be Friday, and the First Call podcast will handicap those stakes races, and 8 in all for you, as we do each and every Friday. Be sure to check back for that. If you're following on our social media channels, be sure to like and repost this and share it and help it grow the audience for It's Official. On behalf of my partner, Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great week. We'll talk to you on Friday.